Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show today. I mean, there's a great story on CNBC today that really got my attention, and it had to do with a person who decided that they wanted to go on Shark Tank to pitch a product, and Shark Tank summarily pinned them away, sent them away, insulted them away, told them that they had no business even attempting to do what they're doing because there was no market for what these folks actually wanted. So, I mean, the idea behind the show today is to use a real-world example as to show exactly what our system does to people. And, you know, I have personal experience as well. And it's something that I'm going to want to tell you about. And I think something that we all should be listening to, something that is so important in our current body politic that nobody wants to admit it or talk about because it is so darn difficult in this world where whenever you put out the negativity that is our unfettered capitalism right now, the first thing people have to do, or the first thing people do, is they tell you, you communists or you socialists, and that usually stunts the conversation right there. So my goal today is to get beyond that. My goal today is to ask you, first of all, if you're just listening to the show, if you're just coming in for the first time, to share this show on your wall right away. We need the show shared on your wall right away. This is a very important show, like all the other shows are important. But there's something specific about this show that I want to get out there. A lot of the perspective that I'm going to give here sometimes is going to be alien to people because they don't quite understand exactly how the system works. What I want to do with folks is to tell them, look, this is really, really how the system works, and it is imperative. It's imperative that we take our lack of objectivity because of our indoctrination off, listen to what's going on, and then make up your mind. But don't let what's occurring in our country right now to scare people off like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, to scare off the Bernie Sanders crowd, to scare off the Ben Jealous of Maryland's crowd. I'm going to read something about Ben Jealous in Maryland and how the Democrats in Maryland are running away from Ben Jealous. Why? Because he wants to offer things of benefit to the population that, guess who doesn't want? The business side of the equation. So, folks, it is so imperative that you help us get this message out. Again, if you're just coming in now, please go ahead and share this on your wall. If you're just coming in now, please go ahead and share this everywhere. This is a very important show. It's going to give a perspective, an analytical perspective on how our system really works and why it is. You know, we've been indoctrinated for a long time. And this indoctrination has cost us. It has extracted from us. It has ensured that just a very few of us, and I know if you're the few that so far you're the guardians of the gates and so far you've done so far, this is not against you. But what I'm saying is this is something that should be for everybody. America and its prosperity and its resources, it should be absolutely for every single American. If you're just joining us, folks, please go ahead and share this on your pages, share this on your walls, please tweet this, please share this by email, share this everywhere. This is going to be on podcast and vlogcast, videos, etc. after the show, so that for those of you who could not stay the time, could actually see it. But this is so important, folks. This show is going to be one of the most important. When I narrate this woman's experience, the lipstick woman's experience with reality. Again, there's so few people that understand exactly the nature of our economy and are simply indoctrinated by those who want us to believe a certain way. So if you're just joining us, please share the program on your website. Please share the program on your Facebook page and everywhere that you can. Anyhow, title of the show today is, here is a perfect example of how capitalism fails us and its implication. And it is, a lot of people run away from a title like that. A lot of people, because they're fearful. They're fearful that if it's not capitalism, what is it? If it's not capitalism, what's there? I am not for the complete elimination of capitalism. I'm for putting capitalism in its right place as a tool to be used in the private sector, in a limited portion of the private sector, just like its intent in the first place. But as a complete economic system, we have the results, and it's staring you in your face. It isn't the government. If you notice, whether it's Obama, Clinton, Reagan, Bush, the wealthy continues to do the same. They're just fine. And the poor continues to do the same. They're just poor. And the middle class continue to do the same. They pay for everything else. Well, they don't pay for everything, but you understand, as a percentage of what they make, they're the ones who consume. They're the ones who make the economy occur, while others are the ones who get the spoils. And folks, it is really so. Anybody wants to call in and debate with this as well, I'm more than willing to do so. The telephone number is 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. I won't have to get academic with this subject. It is not necessary to get academic because we have ample examples of what's happening in this country. And by the way, I did write a book called As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. And in that book, I went over how the economy works. I also went over things like patents and how it actually destroys innovation. I went over how patents have really destroyed many farmers. I went over how the banking system works and why it is a failure. I discuss a whole lot of these issues in the book. And I hope many of you would consider getting it. It's written in a layman form, which makes it very easy to understand. And when understanding that, you'll see why it is that when we talk about the policies that Bernie supports, which are the policies in that great democratic country called Denmark and other Scandinavian countries that work very well, where the people are much more happy than they are in the United States, while their productivity is very high, and while at the same time they can go to school, everybody who wants to be educated can, everybody who wants to work can. Look, we've been fed a whole bunch of lies, and a lot of the good people on the right side of the equation, I don't sit down and blame them because the lies have been very effective. They've been analytical in the way they were put out there, but they are lies. They are lies as far as how good an economy we have. Trump was touting a 4.1% economy. I mean, he's correct by the absolute numbers. It's 4.1%. But ask Trump how that number became 4.1%. First of all, we have the bleed from the Obama administration and those policies. But if you go ahead and if you continue spending a hell of a lot of money and you give away a hell of a lot of money that can be spent as well, of course you're going to have an inflated economy. But what happens thereafter? When all of that juice, all of that sugar is gone, you get an economic failure. And I guarantee you, folks, I'm willing to bet a little piece of my finger, maybe my fingernail or something, because I can't tell you when. But a serious economic downturn is coming, and we don't have with what to fight it. Because interest rates are low, deficits are huge, because we've given away the store, so there's no fallback on. Keynesian economics will really... yes, it will have to affect some sort of Keynesian economics at the next downturn. But do you know what that's going to do further to the budget? I mean, right now, you know what percentage of the budget alone is interest charges? I don't have the number right off the top of my head, but it's a large percentage of our budget that is interest charges. A piece of news that Trump is making sure doesn't get out because he's doing so much talking and crap is that our deficit is at over $1 trillion right now under Trump. This was a guy who was putting down Obama for having under $1 trillion deficit. $500 million to be exact, if I recall. So what I'm trying to tell you folks is there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on here. If you watch Fox News, they're scared to death because Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who beat off an incumbent establishment Democrat in New York, seemed to be setting a pace, setting something into effect, something that people are willing to listen to: single-payer healthcare, Medicare for all, schools that are tuition-free for people, relief for student debt, all these things that she stands for. Fox News says, can you believe they want that? That's what they want. That's what they're running on. Duh. Why shouldn't they be running on that? Why not? We have a rich country that so far has pilfered its people. Why wouldn't we be running on that? Anyhow, so today's show is called "Here is a Perfect Example of How Capitalism Fails Us and Its Implications." Subtitle: In our current economy, it isn't the government that create winners and losers. It is capitalism. Our corporate dictatorship that we have allowed to control us all. I want you to digest that for a minute. Right now, we've had all these people on the right trying to talk about government does this and government does that and government is bad and government is this. But the person that is, or the entity, the institution that is really robbing them blind is corporate capitalism. I mean, you take a look at it item by item, and that's what's pilfering them. But somehow the narrative out there, and it's not only the Republicans that's putting out that narrative, it is the establishment Democrats, the same ones that don't want to support Ben Jealous in Maryland, who's running on single-payer health care and tuition-free college. You see? People got irate when I wrote the article on the front page at Daily Kos that said that the establishment Democrats and the establishment Republicans are running in the same direction. They're just different rails. One is a left rail, one is a right rail, but guess what? The rails go in the same direction. Oh, people got mad. How dare you compare the two? Well, listen to Leggett in Maryland, who says he doesn't that he's concerned about supporting Jealous because of what he is supporting, which is humanity. Folks, we have to get real. Okay, a CNBC story about Shark Tank reject that really rubbed me wrong. It really rubbed me wrong. You see, for those willing to look at the deeper picture, it illustrates an important aspect of capitalism. It is about the supremacy of those who have capital. But there is no necessary correlation between those who have capital with their intellect, producing ability, or anything else. There's no correlation at all that those people who have capital have any advanced intellect, any that they produce more, or that they do anything above and beyond the average middle class or poor person. You want an example? Trump's kids. What Trump kids had was an access to capital. Are they smart? Hell no. But they had access to capital. So why is it in a system that is supposed to be merit-based that just because they have a thieving father who has accumulated billions in a very what manner should I say? I can't say thieving manner, but pretty darn close, stiffing people who he owes money to, etc., etc. How can they honestly say that they deserve the capital that they have that allows them to do what they do? It is wrong. It is not a meritocracy. America is supposed to be a democracy, a meritocracy, and based on our initial evil, and I'm not talking about slavery now, I'm talking about the pilfer and murder of the original inhabitants of this land. We owe it to the world to be the place for everybody. We owe that to the world. But folks, the system that we've created is nothing short of being an evil entity that has extracted not with whips and chains, but with laws. Whips and chains are not the arbiters of slavery anymore. And black folk and the others that at some point in time in this country were slaves are no longer the only slaves. For guess who are the slaves? You're listening to me right now? If you're listening to my voice and you don't own a hell of a lot of stocks in companies and you don't run the plutocracy, you are now today's modern day slave. You're an indentured servant. That's who we are. Based on laws, not chains anymore. It is the chains of the law. They didn't need the chains anymore, folks, because we have the law. And given that the law has the same effect as the chains and the whip, we just need the laws. I need you to instantiate those realities in your brain so that you can understand what I'm going to talk about. But before I get to talk about the blog of the week where we are going to discuss this in more detail, I want to read you a couple of paragraphs from the Power Line. Although it goes as follows. Although Maryland is one of America's bluest state, it has a Republican governor. In 2014, we elected Larry Hogan. It was only the second time in 48 years a Republican had won that office here. We haven't had a Republican senator since 1987. This year, the Democrats nominated Ben Jealous to run against Hogan. Jealous, formerly the head of the NAACP, is a hard leftist. Look at how they define him. He's a hard leftist. No, he wants everybody to have health care and he wants people to go to college affordably. That's a hard leftist? That's a hard leftist? I want to remind folks that we used to have before now. I paid $40 a semester hour as a foreigner to go to college. A Texas resident paid $4 a semester hour, and they were also qualificants of or for a Pell Grant, which meant they virtually went to school tuition free before the Reagan era. Listen to me, folk. I went to school in the Reagan era at the point that all these cuts started to come. And they progressively got worse. Remember that. They're calling Ben Jealous a hard left candidate for supporting policies similar to policies that we had in the past. Talking about the left moving to the center right. That is what we're talking about. We're not having a fair argument. I am for left. Ben Jealous isn't. I am for the nationalization of the oil industry. I am for the nationalization of the electrical grid. I am for the nationalization of all utilities. Period. Water, everything. Water should not be something, in my opinion. I know I'm not going to get it, but that is where I stand. Ben Jealous doesn't stand for those things. I am hard left, not Ben Jealous. But we are in a system today where the plutocracy has extracted so much that we constantly had to move the left to the center so that all the folks that are asking to keep the status quo of what America used to be before seem like hard left. Continuing with this article. We haven't had a Republican senator, let's say, he favors debt-free college, a state-based single-payer health care, a 29% increase in teachers' pay, and shrinking the prison population. That is hard left? That is hard left? My dear brothers and sisters, that is just being human. How could that possibly be hard left? Not possible. Continuing. Hogan is a popular governor, but in a state as blue as Maryland, this does not assure his re-election. Just as Bob Ehrlich, our last governor, he had a positive approval rating, yet lost to O'Malley. I don't want to read all of this because I got a call on the line, and I'm going to bring the call in just before the blog of the week, and then I'll get back to it. This entails securing support and endorsements. But anyhow, the thing that I wanted to get across is, from this article, many Democrats, caller on the line, if you want to speak, please go ahead and push the number 1 so that I know that you want to speak and not just listening. Look, folks, here's the deal. These Democrats in Maryland, some of the establishment Democrats, decided that they are not going to give their support, or at best tepid support, to this man, to Ben Jealous, former head of the NAACP. They are not going to give him the hardcore support. We're fighting for these progressive policies that mimics pretty darn close to what it used to be before. You mean you don't want to pay the teachers, the people who in the general part of the year spends more time with your kids than you do, and you want to have them in a job where they have to have several different jobs? Teachers, if you are voting for Republicans, or if you are voting for folks that are not progressives, what kind of self-hate is that? That you're not voting your interest. Teachers, are you there? My dear brothers and sister teachers, are you listening? Let's get real. 29% pay raise for teachers. That's all? Do you know how far behind teachers are in pay throughout the country in the aggregate? Come on, folks. Let's get real. But I'm not going to read the entire article from the Power Line, because it's in the blog and you can go ahead and read it yourself. And you can see what it's all about, because where I want to go now is I want to get into the blog of the week, which is going to discuss this topic that we're talking about in more detail. Because, folks, I want you guys to instantiate what I'm going to talk about. I need you guys to listen intently, please, I beg of thee. Because the indoctrination that has occurred over the years, I can't look. My right-wing friends who always look at me and say, oh, you socialist or whatever, I don't take it seriously because they don't understand. The Powell Manifesto has created the Heritage Foundation, Cato Institute, and all of that have corrupted reality and corrupted science and corrupted economics into creating a narrative that these folks can believe, and that many folks believe, actually. It is our job. It is a job of politics done right, and other programs like this, other shows like this, to lay truth to the lies that we've been exposed to indoctrinate us into supporting policies that screw us, into supporting policies that only support a few, into supporting policies that are guarded for by the chosen who hold the doors up for the plutocracy. And a lot of my friends are the chosen. Hell, I was the chosen till I decided to throw it away and do this. Man, isn't it easy being the chosen? It is difficult as hell. Being a political activist, trying to change minds, trying to inform, trying to educate, trying to say, folks, this is really how it is. I beg you, please don't just listen to me. Please do your research on your own, but please do your research, and please do it objectively and not the feeding kind of force-feeding, leading research that a lot of folks want you to do, so that you're not very well informed. But anyhow, folks, do you know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
All right. Okay, está bien. Esto es lo que vamos a hablar de hoy. El capitalismo y cómo ya no funciona. Si me están escuchando mis amigos latinos ahí, el blog del week está en inglés, pero les voy a decir algo. Se entiende todo. We're ready for the blog of the week. Here's the title. Woman's lipstick success makes fools out of Shark Tank's, in single quotes, genius capitalists. Genius, they're not. Genius, they're not. But folks, I really urge you to listen. This is an important blog post, a very important blog post. And then I'm going to ask some other requests of you. Other than telling you folks, please go ahead and share this program right now. Share this program on your wall right now. I'm going to give you like 30 seconds to do that because I want more people to see this. If you are on Twitter, please go ahead and tweet this program now. If you're on Facebook Live, please share it not only on one of your walls, please share it more than on your wall. I'm asking you to do so. If you're listening to it after the fact, please do the same again. This is important. It is a start. I'm going to be having more programs on this. Today I was listening earlier in the car to one of my favorite economists, Roach, not Roach, I can't remember his name right now, but I'll remember as we go along. He has a program on KPFT that he gave some great illustrations today, but we'll start with the program. Okay, now that I'm hoping that you've shared it some, here we go. Woman's lipstick success makes fools out of Shark Tank's genius capitalists. And they ain't no geniuses. All right. I hate the Shark Tank show because it is corrosive to business and innovation. It is a complete display of what is wrong with capitalism. A few masters of the game in their capitalist wisdom determines who will likely succeed or fail. That is not how innovation is supposed to work. We should never allow the few to determine the chosen. Before the democratization of the created by the internet, record labels and media companies were the arbiters of the success of many. Many other gatekeepers are there for many other professions. Let me stop there and explain what I mean. Do you remember when there was no MP3s? When there was no Napster? There were none of these products that allows that independent musician to let other people hear his music en masse. There was no YouTube. If you wanted to make it, you kept on saying in demos and begging these record companies to please listen to me. And they have a whole mass of people sending them things. And then they decided who will be the ones that are successful. And in their infinite wisdom, they thought that they were the arbiters. They were the ones who could determine what everybody else would like. But the funny thing about the arbiters of success, it's not, or the arbiters who determine the success of these people, it's not like they were in communities of every type who could understand the culture within that community and the vibes, the internality of those communities, so that they could really determine, well, I think this community would like that or whatever. They didn't let the market decide what was really good or bad. The record company said Beyonce was good, but do you know how many people that sing better than Beyonce are out there? You remember that woman that did the show, the musical with Beyonce, who is a much better singer and didn't get her start until she was discovered by the masses when she went on TV and they voted her in. I want you guys to realize that. It is a corporate America that picks winners and losers. There's this stuff called projection. Projection is when you attribute to somebody a deficiency of yours, right? You have a deficiency, you don't want to acknowledge it, so you profess it. You profess it onto somebody else. So let's say I am hungry. I may say, hey, John, you're hungry, man. The reality is I'm hungry. Since if John wants to eat, then we can both eat. Or if I made a mistake, oh man, you screwed up. Or I mean, it is projection, and it's a way of putting your defaults, your faults onto somebody else. That is what the corporatocracy does. So when all these issues about, the government picking winners and losers, no. That is what corporations have been doing for a very, very long time. They've been picking winners and losers, and it even affected lowly me in the instantiation of my software company. I want you guys to understand. I want you guys to understand how projection works and how the corporatocracy have always lied to you and used projection onto the government for the evils that they themselves are implementing on you. Again, remember the music. Remember the music. The arbiters of all music was through a few companies. And then they decided who was going to be successful. Now we have YouTube, Facebook, and you have a young lady comes on and she plays her guitar and she sings and she's loved. And she, whether a record company signs her or not, she doesn't care because she can make her own income on Facebook, her own income on YouTube and all these other channels, right? The democratization of the economy. Now, there are many other professions with gatekeepers. We have lawyers who can't practice if they don't follow certain rules, engineers who can't sign off documents. I mean, there are a whole lot of arbiters. Some of them, I must say, are good. Don't get me wrong. Some arbiters are good. It adds some reliability to what you're doing. But others, my friend, are sadly crazy. Continuing. While we supposedly live in a democracy, our corporate structures are mostly dictatorships for many industries. That is why I will continue to preach that privatization of what government normally does is a usurpation of power by the few that too many of us tacitly accept. Too many of us tacitly accept. That's just how things are. No, they're not. Just like we democratize music, we can democratize other places as well. Democratize your home, where you can rent out a piece of your land. Democratization. Make sure the laws are written so that somebody can't stop you from doing what nobody can stop the corporation from doing. But first, the incident that drew my wrath. CNBC, the bastion of unfettered capitalism, described Melissa Butler's saga with Shark Tank. She's a 32-year-old woman who had an idea specifically to fulfill an ignored niche by cosmetic companies that follow the tenets of capitalism, where many less advantageous areas are left unserved because the easy profits are harder to come by for those who are solely interested in an easy to make dollar. And that is most investment firms, etc. That's all they care about, the dollar. That's why they allowed Toys R Us to die. They bought Toys R Us, filled it up with debt. A few guys that just moved paper around made a whole bunch of capital off of it, stolen capital out of the company, and then threw the company into bankruptcy, laid off 33,000 workers. That's capitalism. That is capitalism at the extreme, but that is a possibility for every single company that's capitalized. Every single company that's capitalized can be baned. And I said baned, meaning Bain Capital and what they did to it. Folks, for what you don't understand, ask. I'll be more than happy to answer. But this is high time that we understand these issues, folks. Continuing. When Melissa Butler, 32, took her line of custom-made vegan lipsticks in bright colors from pink and red to green and purple on ABC's Shark Tank in 2015, she was laughed out of the room. The chances that this is a business or practical is zero, the famous Kevin O'Leary said in an episode. Kevin O'Leary is the same guy who said that income inequality is a good thing. You only have so many minutes on Earth. Don't waste them trying to sell lipstick, fellow shark Damon John added. You are never going to create anything new in this world. It's lipstick. Sharks Lori Greiner, Mark Cuban, and Robert Harjavec took a more subtle approach, but also declined to invest in Butler's cosmetic company called The Lip Bar. Butler was devastated. They were really cruel to us, she tells CNBC. Make it of the episode where she appeared with her creative director Roscoe Spears. But the experience only further ignited her ambition to succeed, Butler says, and it taught her an important lesson about persistence that would years later allow her to land the Lip Bars product on shelves at 142 Target stores across the country at the end of the day. If I had stopped my business after one no, even a public no, then maybe I shouldn't have started, Butler says. I couldn't allow someone else to be the authority of my dream. And that is the same thing that happened to me with Willie's Computer Software Company. The first time I went for a loan, they said, no. Do you have capital? No. I said, if I had capital, I wouldn't need the loan. Well, if you don't have capital as collateral, we can't give you a loan. Of course, my friend, a coke addict, who was doing a phone card company, he went in for the same amount. They saw him. That's another issue with our capitalist structure that has some of the prejudices in it. But he got his loan. I didn't. At the time when my business was doing very well, not using loans from a bank, but using loans from credit cards, etc., I went to the bank and I said, I want a loan. They said, you have capital? I said, yes, but you know what? I'm not coming to ask you for a loan. I'm coming to tell you that you're giving me a loan. Oh, really? You are? Yes, and you'll have the cartapacio filled with all the corroboration information and loan application out. The vice president, everybody there is a vice president who are taking loans. Okay, well, here are all the paperwork you need, and after you can bring it back to us in a few weeks when you're done with it. I said, no, you'll have it tomorrow. I spent 24 hours without sleep and put it in a cartapacio, a binder, put it in a FedEx box. Before that, I didn't go into the office. I told them they had to come to my office. I was a bank in there for a long time, and they could see my accounts. And they came to the office. The vice president came to my office, my home office, signed the papers, went back, sent the papers by FedEx. My thing is, there's some of us that are not deterred by no. Even if we say no, we continue because we believe in what we're doing. But for the vast majority of people, sometimes a no can be devastating. And that can alter the course of an individual's life. That can alter the course of an entire country if that individual's product or project or service would have been something great. Capitalism, under this tenet, creates winners and losers. And it does not do it based on merit. It's subjective. It is based on the chosen ones, the ones who they decide to be chosen. Continuing, Melissa Butler saw an unfulfilled need. I was really frustrated with the beauty industry, she said about the lipstick choice she had. I hated the excess amounts of chemicals. I hated the lack of diversity. I hated that if you wanted to get a high-performing product, you had to spend $1 million. To the geniuses at Shark Tank, because other major corporations had not tackled that, there was no profit to be made, and those affected by that lacking, to hell with them. In other words, if we can't make a bunch of money, to hell with somebody who would have benefited from that product. We don't give a damn. We're capitalism. We have no soul. We have no morals. We just talk about extracting. We're just talking about maximizing profits. You remember the definition of capitalism is the efficient allocation of resources. Of course, there's nothing efficient about allocating something when the choices are made subjectively by those who don't necessarily have the intellect to be making the choices that they're making. And having capital does not mean you have intellect. And the converse is also true. Because, continuing, the lack of moral compass of capitalism, where it is profit at all costs, means many are left unfulfilled if they do not fit into the norm. And folks, what I'm saying sometimes sound harsh, but the reality of how this stuff works when you don't have the wherewithal or the income or the money or whatever is much harsher. Because in effect, people die. Why do we have a lousy healthcare system? Because we insist that it be capitalist. And what does that mean? People die. Thousands die a year. No morals, no scruples. No morals, no scruples. Continuing, my dear friends. But Melissa was strong. Melissa was strong, okay? She did it her way and built her business anyway without using the capitalist model. She did it the free enterprise way. Unfortunately, for most people do not have her makeup. You know? You can't ask all Americans to be pig-headed. I'm a pig-headed SOB. I decided to do this because I said, you know what? I gave up on my software company to really hit the system, to really say we can make a difference. When I say we, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about me, you, and everybody else. We can make a difference. We can make a change. We can do things once and for all and not have the plutocracy they're telling us. Oh my God, you be scared because nothing is going to change. I am crazy enough to know that we can effect change. And I'm not talking about the hope change that Obama spoke about. I am talking about we are going to effect change continuously, slowly, methodically, changing minds, teaching people, showing folks how things really, 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 really work. We have to. The country is genuinely in decline. Some of us can see it, others can't. Those of us that can, it is our utmost duty, our obligation to do something about it. Continuing, my dear friends. But Melissa was strong. She did it her way and built her business anyway without using the capitalist model. She did it the free enterprise way. I'm a big free enterprise supporter. Free enterprise, not capitalism. Free enterprise, they're not the same. They try to conflate them. They are not the same. They are not the same. One is evil based on a few. The other one is open to all. Again, capitalism and free enterprise are not the same. Free enterprise, you have the ability to do whatever you want, to open a business and do whatever you want. It's a democracy. Capitalism is not a democracy. Capitalism is a dictatorship. It's just that the dictatorship is not coming from the government. It's coming from the corporations. It's the corporations dictating. And where they cannot dictate within their own, the realms of their own corporation, they dictate through the substance that the court has given them with Citizens United and other laws, so that then they effectively run the government as well. Continuing, my dear friends. She did it the free enterprise way. Unfortunately, most people do not have her makeup. That rejection would be tantamount to the death of a good idea, because false masters said it had no potential, because those who lacked the intellect to understand what this woman was telling them, there is a market, there is a space here, an unserved space that needed to be addressed. Well, we don't know. There's even that. I don't know. Look, that is what we're talking about. Now, we must remember, capitalists are not necessarily intelligent. They know how to play one game that they're trained to play. They're like monkeys, right? They go to business school. They learn how the arrows work. That's why they always say, if you go to a stockbroker and he picks stocks and you get a monkey to throw a dart at stocks, the monkey and the stockbroker generally do well. Sometimes the monkey does better. So you go to school 4 years and you get a master's degree and all these kinds, MBA degree and all these degrees, just to be able to be on par with a monkey. Okay? Remember that. All these bastions of capitalism, these titans of finance that we give respect to, that appear on CNBC and all these programs, they're no better in selecting stocks. They're no better in the aggregate on your finances than a monkey throwing a dart. Please remember those things, folks. I am not inventing these things. Look them up. Everything that I say here today, look it up. because it's the good thing about it is I don't have to hammer certain things, because when you're telling the truth, you don't have to do the kinds of things the right has to do to promote its lies, to turn its lies into truths. You see? All right. We are taught in America that growth, and this is a technical part here that I want you to listen to. This is a little bit technical. Not super technical, but a little bit technical. I needed to listen to this in detail. We are taught in America that growth is everything. Businesses can have a steady state profit that pays employees a good wage and pays investors a solid dividend for the use of their capital. Okay? So let's use Walmart as an example. Walmart constantly selling bread. It constantly have a profit margin on that bread of, let's say, 50 cents or whatever it is. It uses some of that profit to pay its employees. It uses some of that profit to pay its stockholders. But that stuff stays constant. Okay? But for business, if a business is not growing, expanding according to the capitalist model, it is a failure. According to whom? According to capitalism. Because all we can be afforded to have is growth, growth, and growth. So here we go. But if business is not growing, expanding according to the capitalist model, it is a failure where sharks move in to destroy. Like what they did to what they did to Toys R Us. Yeah, Toys R Us wasn't necessarily growing, but it was a profitable company. Toys R Us wasn't exploding with new ideas, but it was a steady state company. It hired a whole bunch of people, and these people were all doing well. Okay, the managers were doing well, etc., etc., etc. Look like we have some sort of a background noise. Forgive that, but I have no control over that at this point in time. Anyway, so they destroyed. So here's what I have to tell these capitalists. It is foolish and unsustainable because there is a point where things reach a steady state and maintenance is what is optimal, not growth, right? A tree grows to a certain point and then it stops because it's no longer optimal to grow that tree. It reaches the sources where the water cannot climb any further. Its weight and much other factors, physical factors, factors having to do with physics, why it can't get any bigger. The same thing has to do with corporations or with our economy. There is just so much you can grow and not stay steady state because you reach a limit. And that limit is the limit of your current economic system. And eventually your growth depends on somebody else's decline. And that is where we are at in America's capitalism right now. That is why the pie is growing at 2%, right? Don't follow the 4.1% because the aggregate is going to drop all the way back. When you factor in a year, it's going to drop to around 2-point-something%. So in the aggregate, the economy is growing at 2%, right? 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%. That is really inflation. 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%. Okay? But the wealthy is growing at 7%, 7, 8, 9%. If the whole thing is growing at 2%, folks, this is simple math. If the whole thing is growing at 2% and the wealthy folk are growing at 7%, simple mathematics, simple arithmetic tells you that the wealthy is pilfering the others. The 1%, if they're growing at that rate, the 10% if they're growing at a lower rate but greater than the average, and everybody else is growing at a lesser rate, that means that they are extracting out of the entire economy. It's math. There are no two ways around it. It's math. They don't quite want, they like to, we can grow ourselves out of a recession. We can grow ourselves out of tax cuts. No, you can't. The laws of math are absolute. And that is a lie that we have to dispel. And once you forget about just listening to what some person you respect on the right tells you about how our economy works, or some establishment Democrat tells you why single payer is not something we can do. Once you hear those things out and stop listening to them, but finding out on your own, getting reputable sources like Politics Done Right, and not just taking it at face value, but researching what Politics Done Right is telling you, then, folks, then we are going to move the scale. People are going to start thinking on their own. People are going to start saying, oh my God, math is really absolute. Science is really absolute. You know? Okay, so continue with the thing. But if business is not growing, expanding according to the capitalist model, it is a failure where sharks move in to destroy. It is foolish and unsustainable because there is a point where things reach a steady state and maintenance is what is optimal, not growth. Growth at that point is solely for the benefit of the capitalist class who makes money on capital without expending labor or intellect. In other words, they're producing nothing. They are producing no labor. They're producing no product. They're doing nothing. They're just moving paper. When Bain's Capital bought Toys R Us, they didn't insert research and development. They didn't develop anything. They didn't invest money in employees so that they could create better toys, so they could go over to different countries and different cities to look for better toys to improve the value of Toys R Us. They just borrowed against Toys R Us. And they kept the money because Toys R Us was a collateral that was going to be liquidated afterwards. That's capitalism. And the people, you are just peons in the system. You don't count. I don't care if you're an executive. Today on Richard, the economist, he today on KPFT discussed how even the managers at Toys R Us didn't quite know what was going on when it hit them. They didn't quite know what was going on, many of them. How deep it was. What Bain's Capital and the other investment firms did to liquidate Toys R Us. Toys R Us didn't have to have all that debt on top of it at all. And that money could have been invested in research, not in somebody's pocket. Figure out how many fees they paid to these investment bankers who need not have been there in the first place. Folks, come on. We have to not just take at face value what some right winger or somebody on CNBC tells you. Research yourself. Listen to Politics Done Right. Please share Politics Done Right. Let people get this stuff. Because the way they're screwing us is so badly, unless we unmask ourselves. They'll continue doing it because there's no backstop. There's no pressure to stop them. Because they have a select few that will buy anything they're selling, that they'll believe everything that they say. We have to do better than that. We have to do better than that. Look, I have a software company that investors called on many times for the sole purpose of capitalizing on it, without regards to what its long-term growth potential would look like. And I can tell you what my long-term growth potential would look like. For a small businessman with 1 or 2 people, 3 people, it would have been, it is fine, right? It's sustainable. But for capitalizing that company on the technology that we were developing was a shrinking niche market. All our competitors, Greenleaf, Blaze, and all the big guys that competed against my software company, they were all going out of business. The market was shrinking such that we could not sustain them all. I think there are about 2 or 3 of us that lasted. And mine still have some remnants going. You know, again, because there's so little, there's still remnants going. I've just left it to the others. The idea here, folks, is this. The idea is this. I thought it was unethical then because these guys knew absolutely nothing about the business and would have likely bankrupted my small company after fooling a few into buying stocks that would ultimately be unsupported by its revenue potential. You see, I love to sleep at night, and I talk a lot, and I talk about having financial morality and trying not to hurt people a lot. to capitalize on a company and sell stocks for something that you don't think can support that many investors is a farce. And I was never going to be a part of a farce. So look, free enterprise is not capitalism at all. Free enterprise is not capitalism. The capitalism we currently have is mostly a fraud that is being realized as it extracts more and more from most to satisfy the growth and wealth of a few. I only wish everyone could see beyond the pretty indoctrinating facade and understand that our decline is not mostly because of our everyday politics, but because of a fraudulent economic system that does not reward intellect and labor in the aggregate, but charlatan bankers and financiers who play with paper. They produce nothing. They produce no service of value to the average American. They produce no product of value to the average American. They just move paper, and by moving that paper, they get wealthy. They make their wealth, Bezos' wealth, the richest man on the planet, or on the U.S. wealth, is based on the intellect and labor of millions. Not on his. He is like the puppeteer moving the strings, right? I don't say he doesn't have an innovative mind in being able to retail, but that does not merit that he extracted that much value out of an economy. He is not worth that. Amazon is great, but Amazon is no better than any other online store that has not yet made it. But they have, you know, they were the ones that was chosen, right? But they're not better than, I mean, there are many online stores that are much more efficient, work better, or smoother interface, etc. But they just happen to have the market now. And once you have the monopoly, it's hard for anybody else to get in, right? So don't sit down there and equate the very wealthy with intellect and what they produce. Most of these guys that are very wealthy have produced very little, have been able to monopolize on the intellect and labor of others. And the labor and intellect of others rarely is compensated. Folks, it is so important that you understand the reality of what our economy means. Important, important, important. Unfortunately, however, and I end sort of on a down note, not completely down, but kind of a down. Unfortunately, Melissa, the Shark Tank reject, may not have learned her lesson. She is still indoctrinated by our system that is on a collapsing trajectory. This is what she said in July. The Lip Bar brought in its first outside investment from the New Voices Fund, which invests in ventures owned or managed by women of color and is backed by Unilever. In other words, now that she's made it, she wants to even make it make it likely somehow bigger and capitalize on it and bring folks into the fold instead of running something the ethical way. She didn't learn her lesson. She didn't learn how damaging what they did to her will be to many others. Folks, organic growth is much better than selling one's soul to the parasites that are investment firms. And that is the blog of the week. Went a little over, but I mean, this is an important subject that I really wanted to cover. I hope you guys got it. If you have any kinds of questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them, because this is an important subject, especially now that we have Ocasio-Cortez running, now that we have the woman running against Cuomo in what is her name? The woman running for governor in New York against Cuomo. All these people are running on a platform to blow these realities into the forefront. And these realities need to be placed into the forefront, because most Americans don't know, and the mainstream media can't tell them what we're telling you here. They just can't. And the reason they can't is because that's who pay their bills, right? That's who pays their bills, brothers and sisters. Don't take my word, any word that I just gave you here. Don't. All I ask you to do is do your research on the things that I've spoken about here. It is so darn important. Okay, let me go ahead and start reading something. I'm going to go over by 5 minutes today just because I was long-winded. But anyhow, let's go ahead and I'm going to read out the message real quick. Michael Nellis, hi, how are you doing? Daniel Lado, at least he is specifying Americans as beneficiary of our resources. Glad to hear you believe illegals ought to get benefits. I don't care if you want to put it that way because, I mean, illegals, there are no illegals, my friend. The only illegals here are the people who originally came to the country and killed a whole lot of people. So let's not go there. Let's not really go there. There are no illegals currently living in the United States. Again, remember our genesis. All right. Daniel Lado, you mean the result of capitalism like increased longevity, huge middle class? I think you can go to Denmark and see that their longevity is actually better than ours. And in the countries that have adapted other policies, specifically single-payer healthcare and better healthcare, they're all doing better than us. May I suggest, my dear friend, that you read a little bit more and learn these things before you put these kind of comments on, because what it does is it diminishes what people would think of your intellect. It's not a good thing to do, to just make a comment off cuff that you really don't know about. The countries that implement good socialized medicine are way ahead of the United States in the outcome for their populations at large, period. There's not even an argument for that. Michael Nellis says, too bad Reagan destroyed the middle class and lifespans would be longer if capitalists weren't so greedy. That's very true. Want to stop all innovation? Your best path to success is to abolish patents. Oh, really now? A patent stopped me from creating a particular product that would have competed with Amazon. I've told that story. I've told that story in the book that I wrote called As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. Yes, the patent system hurt me. The patent system also hurt a whole lot of farmers who decided to plant their own seeds. It got cross-pollinated with Monsanto seed. Monsanto sued the farmer for claiming they have their legal property. And guess what? Monsanto won. The farmer had to start buying seeds from Monsanto. He could no longer harvest his own seeds because his seeds were polluted by Monsanto's pollen. I always thought about, why don't the farmer sue Monsanto for having his pollen or the pollination mess with his seeds? That is always something that I wondered. Shouldn't the farmer sue Monsanto for corrupting his source of income? Tax cuts not giving away money. Yes, tax cut is in effect giving away money, because when you give tax cuts and you can't pay for the military cash, it means that those people who need the military more than the average American citizen are not paying their fair share. So I love to hear when people like you say, oh, tax cuts are not free. I mean, it's not a giveaway because you're just giving people back their money. No, you're giving them back money for something they should have paid for. Our big military, our big expenditures, much of it is for those rich people who use more of it than anyone else. Our big military is required to support the monies of the wealthy throughout the world. Don't you ever forget it. If we really wanted to right size our military and all of that, yeah, we could give them a big tax cut and cut the military by the tax cut we gave them, and we could do a whole lot of things like that. But remember, the resources of this country were designed to support the wealthy. All right, let's see what else. Daniel Lado, so you would use the force of the state to strip them of their wealth? Absolutely so. They use the force of the state to steal the wealth. Let's see. Chase Escamilla, capitalism is terrible, won't be around past 2030. Well, actually, Escamilla, I think Trump has sped up that quite a bit. 2030 may be optimistic, because the catastrophe that is going to occur when we have to do, we have fiat money. We're really going to have to put fiat money put the real definition of fiat money into the psyche of Americans. And when that first occurs, our dollar is going to crash, and there's a whole lot of reckoning to come by. Consumer don't pick winners and losers. Let's see. Chase is coming. Tax cuts will be a dagger in the U.S. economy. You're absolutely right. William McLeod, exactly. Teachers vote your interest. Absolutely. Daniel Lado, I love how Egberto seems to presume that individuals consider their best interests. Such arrogance. Oh, yes, they do. Individuals would likely consider their best interests when educated, and that's why I have a whole lot of confidence in individuals, my friend. Record companies cannot force people to buy. No, they can't force people to buy, but they can give the people the only options that they have, which is what record companies did. They gave them, you can pick one of these 10. You can't pick one of these 100,000, okay? So that is actually selecting what people have the opportunity to buy. You see, I love how you guys only have half arguments. You never have the full picture. Daniel Legdo, so some arbiters, the government, yes, the government is the best arbiter because the government represents we the people. If we the people elect people that represent us, then it is a representative government and we would get better government. The problem right now is we have an indoctrinated people that are electing, to put it as nice as I can, imbeciles into Congress. All right, let's see. Toys R Us failing had nothing to do with the shift online shopping. Yes, it did as well. But I'm telling you, instead of Bain Capital extracting all the money they had, they could have invested into a firm that was going to really maximize on Toys R Us online presence and better performance. Ronald Tromfas Pedosky, welcome aboard, my dear friend. I'm surprised you didn't say something else. Daniel Lado, how can you show folks how things work when it is painfully clear you have a jaundiced understanding of reality? Please tell me what part of reality I don't understand. I would love you to tell me specifically which part of reality that is. Rene Perpetua, Lado, stop trolling. I love Lado. Lado is my friend. I mean, Lado gives me an opportunity to speak to a lot of right-wingers who have the same questions and comments that he have. By me addressing his troll in comments, I'm able to talk to others and will convince some who think like him that, oh my God, I really don't want to sound like that, so I better really do my research. You're just insulting, not discussing. I don't bother. The insults don't bother me at all. Rene Perpetua. I am so confident in what I'm doing that, you know, they could call me anything they want to call me, and I mean anything, and it doesn't really bother me. Rene Perpetua, you do not represent a counter argument. That is very true, Rene. He does not, and that is in effect, you're correct. That is really lazy. And what I find a whole lot with people who are just listening to their external voices is that is a good definition of what they are. And that's not to be rude or anything, but generally speaking, it's a sense of laziness that prevents one from actively seeking out truth. And when you actively fail to seek out truth, what happens is we all pay. Let me run through one more time to make sure I have no more to address. And since I have no more to address, let me just go ahead and let's see. Rene Perpetua, Bezos now owns the Washington Post. That's true. Rene Perpetua, the middle class is disappearing. True. Which ones? Let's see what else I have here that needs to be said. And bear with me, folks. Whatever I don't answer here, I'll go ahead and answer in the part. But I want to get real quickly to our ask, and that is to remind folks that this is not only a call-in show, but a progressive show that needs your support. So I want to ask you if you believe in what we're doing. And what we're doing is really altruistic. What we're doing is something that we want folks to believe in and do and work on. And we're not asking you to just follow us blindly, but to go out there and research the things that we talk about. Please go ahead to patreon.com/politicsdoneright, patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Be a part of the solution. You can be a part of the solution by subscribing to this show, Politics Done Right. The one thing that I promise you is to bring you truth. Bring you absolute truth and with corroboration. And when I say corroboration, I tell you, you can go ahead and do your corroborating of anything that I said. If at some point I make a mistake, I'm one of the first ones that always come out and say, I don't do them often, but I come out. And if I do make a mistake, I'll be there telling you, because that is what news is about. That's what crowdsourcing is all about. That's how informing us as the body politic is all. That's what it's all about. Patreon.com, patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Please join the family. Please be a subscriber. I tell you, there's much to come. I want it to be in the long run. It's not only going to be Politics Done Right. It's going to be quite a bit other things that we're talking about. That's going to be on this striving progressive program that we are intent on make a difference. So please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright, patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Folks, you know how I'm going to end this little baby here. This is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And I am out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right, I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES, that is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.